Hello, this is Stephanie Moberly. This is my case study for EDL852. So let's start by looking at who's involved in this situation. So our stakeholders include Susan Potter, who's the principal, newly appointed, Helen Burke, who's a teacher, and she is the now appointed committee chair. Other committee members that include 4 parents from the community as well as 3 additional teachers for this building. So after getting the committee to agree to appoint another individual as chair, Susan Potter is having issues with the committee, then placing all the decision making and planning on her with little to no guidance. So this is our initial problem. When did this all occur? So the initial issue began following the first committee meeting. The committee meetings are taking place months before the new school is scheduled to open. Where is this taking place? Lightville Community School District is a rural school consisting of 2, soon to be 3 schools. The school is located within 10 miles of a major city and serves 2 rural townships. So this is an issue because Mrs. Potter is coming into this school attempting to create a broad-based committee to develop a vision statement. She's met with pushback from many of the teachers serving on the committee and is directed to create the vision statement independently, thus losing any input from the community on their values. So as far as legal or ethical issues, anyone who's being harmed during this decision or during these actions, I have first and foremost Mrs. Potter. She very clearly stated her expectations and how she wanted to go about this, so those are not being met. The middle school staff, so any staff members are going to be affected by this directly because this committee is responsible for creating a vision statement, which is going to guide them in their daily actions. And then, of course, the middle school students and their parents. Again, all of these students that will be attending this school will be have their instruction guided based on this vision created by this committee. As far as any laws being broken, I cannot think of any, to my knowledge, laws that are being broken by what's going on in this scenario. There was no contract put in place. However, there were guidelines put in place, and all of the committee members agreed to the guidelines. So they're breaching those guidelines by not following through with those. Were the actions discriminatory or constituted as harassment? So I put that Mrs. Potter did an excellent job of handling the situation and reiterating her point. By not abiding to those guidelines put in place and agreed upon by the committee, Mrs. Burke and the committee members are not doing their part. The committee's actions were not discriminatory or considered harassment because they did not act out against Mrs. Potter in a discriminatory way. They simply wanted her to complete the task and then get their approval after the fact. So they're kind of passing the torch. So in a nutshell, Mrs. Potter, the newly hired middle school principal, has formed a committee with the purpose of working collaboratively on a school vision statement, but has been informed by the committee and committee chair that they believe she should create a vision on her own and bring it to them for approval instead of everyone providing input as requested by Mrs. Potter. So let's take a deeper look at the people involved. Susan Potter is a very well qualified middle school principal. She has experience doing this, but she values shared values and collaboration. And this is really apparent in the fact that she's trying to create this committee so that they can provide input for creating the foundation for this new school and their vision. Helen Burke, I described her as very headstrong. She's an English and social studies teacher that Mrs. Potter has hired for the middle school. She also has close ties to the school board, being that her brother is a school board member. She believes that she has a good influence on how they vote and can sway them one way or the other. And then the committee members. The remaining committee members consist of 4 parents and 3 additional teachers who do not want to be responsible for making any decisions. That's very clear in their actions. They plan to sit back and wait for Mrs. Potter to create the plan, and then they will use their positions to influence the school board and remaining staff. I also think that many of the staff members within this community are just not used to really having a say in what's going on. So this is a new concept for them. So they definitely have to step out of their comfort zone. Lightville Community School District is a growing rural school district that currently houses 2 buildings, which is the elementary building for grades K through 6, and then the middle school and high school building, which has all the 7th through 12th grade students. Both buildings are located on a 65-acre site 2 miles outside of the town of Lightville, but due to the increasing enrollment, the district has decided to build a new middle school to house the 6th through 8th grade students. And in the program, since this middle school building is a new addition to the district, Mrs. Potter has not yet set a school curriculum or decided upon one. That is within her list of responsibilities. However, she must first create the vision to guide that. When selected, the curriculum will serve all the 6th through 8th grade students in this public school. Stakeholders involved, of course, the school and the district will be directly impacted by the decisions made by Mrs. Potter and the committee. Mrs. Potter is faced with meeting the needs of her future students the best way she sees fit, and working collaboratively with staff members who are reluctant. Helen Burke is tasked with directing the committee to meet the needs of the new building. She could possibly harm her future relationship with her building administrator if she's not going about this the right way. And then the student teaching will be determined by the vision put in place by the committee, thus impacting all students who attend this school and future students. So the questions that I thought that I really needed to consider while weighing my options were, first and foremost, what's the time frame for creating vision? Helen Burke kept going back to that they're kind of rushed, and so they thought it would just be best for Mrs. Potter to create the vision on her own and then bring it to them for approval. They didn't want to take the time to go through the whole process that she had in mind. And then, are all the committee members being heard, or is Helen's voice the only one being presented, and is she kind of leading this committee in the way that she sees fit without considering anybody else? And then, can I please everyone? I think as an administrator, it is very important to remember that you cannot please everyone. That should be a goal. But a lot of times, if you're giving everybody an opportunity to be heard and voice their thoughts and their opinions, then even if you're not necessarily going with their suggestion, they're going to see how you did give them an opportunity to be heard. Okay, so these are my possible options that I came up with, and there are 3 options that I could see going with. Option 1 is to do nothing. Mrs. Potter will put her feelings and wishes aside and create a vision for the committee to vote on and present to the board. So she will go with what the committee is instructing her to do. Option 2, meet with Helen Burke privately and discuss taking the chair position away from her and fill that position myself. I could then run the meetings as I see fit, including all committee members in the process I originally envisioned. So instead of allowing somebody else to be in charge, I would then take over that responsibility and then do it as I see fit. And then option 3, I would ask to speak at the meeting and go over the guidelines agreed upon by all committee members. I would reiterate the last 2 guidelines and explain that even though you're extremely familiar with the middle school and teaching middle school, you are still not familiar with this area. This is your first year within the school district. Stress that you'll be using your previous knowledge and their input to building a vision with their input along the way. Okay, so let's evaluate these options. So here are the pros and cons for each one. Option 1 would please the committee members. So a pro, Mrs. Potter is able to maintain a relationship with all of her staff. So she's not ruffling any feathers, she's doing what they've asked, and a vision still gets created. The cons, however, Mrs. Potter is stuck completing all the work with little or no input from the others. The vision will not reflect the collective values and beliefs of the committee members and community at large. And then the committee members will not learn to follow guidelines put in place and will struggle with future planning projects. Option 2, take over as chair. A pro for this, Mrs. Potter, excuse me, Mrs. Potter will have the freedom to run any future meetings as she sees fit. She will also have the power to delegate tasks and encourage all committee members to voice their thoughts. Cons that I could see from taking this path would be by taking away the chair position, Mrs. Potter may be straining a working relationship with Mrs. Burke and then other teachers on the committee. These committee members may resent her for not following along with their wishes. She is not following through with her original ideas by now becoming the chair, which contradicts with her personal values. And then option 3, review the guidelines and collaborate. Mrs. Potter can help remind the committee of the original goals while encouraging them to take a part. All committee members will have input and their values and beliefs will be represented in the vision, thus increasing future buy-in and excitement within the new building. Also, Mrs. Potter can use this opportunity as a teaching moment with her staff. She's modeling how to direct a group and minimize conflict. She can also showcase her experience while still showing that she needs and wants their input to help in the areas she lacks. A possible con that I saw with this was that some committee members may still fight the collaboration aspect. This is a new concept that many of them are unfamiliar with and so are uncomfortable. So they might still have some pushback and might not agree to provide any input. So the best option that I saw and that I would probably use for my initial approach would be option 3. In order for Mrs. Potter and the committee to create the best vision possible, they must work collaboratively. The committee is trusting enough in her abilities to create the vision on her own. Thus, they should be trusting enough to trust in her process. The original guidelines agreed to by everyone. They stated that the vision would reflect the collective values and beliefs in the committee members and hopefully the community at large, as well as allow all stakeholders a chance to suggest elements of the vision. If all committee members are not taking an active role in the development of the vision, there's no guarantee that the vision will meet those expectations. It is important to recognize that these committee members are not used to having an opportunity to impact change or to truly work collaboratively. Explain to them that this will be a common theme for you because of its many benefits. And then my plan of action. First, ask Helen Burke, the committee chair, to be put on the agenda for the next meeting. At the beginning of the next meeting, I would have the guidelines posted for all to see, read through them with all the committee members, and then ask again if they all agree to follow those. Then readdress the topic of creating a vision for the school. Explain to the committee that the purpose for a vision, which is to reflect a core set of values and priorities that includes data use, technology, equity, diversity, digital relationship, and community. Again, reiterating the fact that you are new to this community, so you really need them for this aspect. Give the committee members an example of what you're seeking. So I would display a list of my personal values and beliefs for all to see, and then promote participation by asking leading questions to encourage others to speak out, and then add their suggestions to yours. Some questions I might ask are, what do you envision a perfect middle school? What do you see that looking like? What values do we want our students to possess? And what are our academic goals for our students? After making sure all committee members have added to the initial list, ask them to look for common themes. Take a moment for them to reflect on the process. Discuss with the committee how this provides you with important information that will influence the school vision. Then discuss the next step with the committee and ask if they'll be willing to continue with their process rather than you having to draft it entirely on your own. That's my thoughts. Thanks for listening.